Hey guys, Omerko here, self-taught web developer. Well, through this series you mostly saw how can we bind and use our properties from TypeScript in our markup, in our HTML files. Well, through this video we will take a look into reversed option. I will show you how can you use something called template references. Template references, or you can even call them as template variables, can be explained in multiple ways. Those would be directives. Well, those are also DOM elements within our template, or we can just call them as normal elements. To create the simple example of template reference, I will first remove my content from my last video, so this paragraph here, with this ng class, save this HTML, then in my CSS I will also remove these two classes as I won't need those, and in my TypeScript file I have user age property, I can also remove that property here. So let's say that I wish to have an input field where user could enter his username. So input should be type of text and the name could be username, that's okay, and even here I could add a placeholder, enter your username. In Angular we also mostly move this to the next lines because this way it is more readable. We have input field and all the attributes on it. So if I wish to use this input field to access its properties, its attributes in my TypeScript file right here, for those I mostly use template references or template variables. To set the template reference, after my placeholder, I could put just a hash here and name it. Well, I should pass a name for this template reference. As this input field should hold username value, I will use username as a template variable here. Now, next to my input field, I will also create a simple HTML button. So button here, let's say that this button has a text of submit, and next to this submit text, here on a button, I will add a click event listener. Regarding these click event listeners, well, we already took a look into those a bit earlier in this series. To that click listener, I will also listen to my function, which I still need to create. So here I will put equal and here the name of the function. I will name my function submit username. So my name of the function will be submit username. And here I could just pass whole, well, template variable that I have, which is this username variable at my input field. So here I will just pass username. Now going to my TypeScript, I will quickly copy this submit username. In my TypeScript, I can create that function, which is submit username. And this function expects something here. It expects username itself. So username. Regarding this username, I will set also the type of it to be any. Now in my function, I can quickly just use console.log and I will log entire username, well, whatever I get from this HTML variable here. On my browser now, I do have my input field here and that submit button. I will quickly go inspect here and open up the console. I could move this a bit here so you could see it. Let me also zoom this in. And here on my browser, here on my username input field, I will use Omerko text and submit. On submit itself, what we do get here, well, basically we are getting the whole input element itself, which is the type of text, name is username as we set, and also placeholder is set to enter your username, which is correct. So basically passing this username into my function and logging that whole element here, well, basically that will log whole element for me. If I wish to see all the values that this element could have, I will just wrap this username in an object right here. So save now and go back to browser. Now if I would type Omerko and submit this, and if I would open up this username right here, we could see obviously a lot of data regarding this input field itself. So For example, I could see here the base URI, which is basically the current URL that we are currently on, which is our local host. Also, I could see the local name, which is the input. It is correct. Our field is an input field. And we also could see, for example, the name of the input field, which is the username that we passed. What we cannot see here is the value itself, which is this Omerko. But going back to my code, if I would log this username like this, dot value, then if I would go back to my browser, now let's type Omerko, submit, we can see that value here. So yeah, the value itself exists on this input field. As we passed our reference from our HTML here to our TypeScript, we also set the type of that to be any. There is explicit type in Angular to use. We call that type template reference. This template reference should also be imported from @angular/core. Also, this template reference expects some generic type. So here we should pass some type. For example, if I would pass any type, I won't see the error now on my template reference at all, but there is explicit type for that. For example, HTML input element could be the type for that to use, because we are working here with the input element itself. Here we are getting the error of the username.value. Well, value does not exist here, so instead of that, we would use something called element ref, which is the reference for the element, and then we would have the option to use a native element. This native element will basically bind our native HTML element, log that right here. Mostly, we would not use this type of template references and also the typing of that in this example. We would use something called viewChild for that, which you will see in my next video. But before I finish up this video, I would just remove this template reference right here and set my username to be the type of string. So here, instead of logging this, I would remove it and just log on my whole username. Regarding this string, I wish not to pass here the whole input element itself, but I wish to pass username dot value that this input field holds. So now in my browser, if I would use the same text here and submit, we would still see that value. So even though we pass directly value from our HTML to our TypeScript will still correctly work. So with this example, you saw how can you reference your elements and use them in TypeScript. As I mentioned, there is a better way to do that, so we will go through that in my next video. Thank you all for watching. If you like what you saw, please click like and subscribe, as I am posting new content weekly. Thank you once again, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.